Now, before we actually go to cutting this, we need to double check our post locations, make sure they're going to work out for the closest we can get to a straight pull. And then we can decide if we like the lines that we're about to cut. Honestly, I think our next step is initial facet carves, so that we can then do our truss. I'll explain later. Okay, I put some tape down. I marked the edge of our blank, and then I marked 1/8 of an inch inside the edge of our blank for our 2 E strings. Then I used the string spacing ruler to find a couple different locations so we could draw our string lines. Best guess, which I think should be good enough. Okay, and then looking at the width of the post where the string actually connects, and then cutting that in half. I'm simplifying at the moment, but you get the point. From our template, I took the placement longwise, and then off of the string, off the edge of the string, I measured, half the width of the post, which should be pretty accurate there. Now, on this end, you also have to take into consideration half the width of the string, since these strings are, considerably fatter. So I added just a little extra, a little less extra as we go down. And I think this should be really close to a straight pull. Not that a straight pull is tremendously important in this situation. We're not using a trim, but I want to get in the habit of trying to do a straight pull, or as close to it as we can. From there, I'm going to mark from these new locations 5/8 from that spot. That was pretty close. And then we'll connect the dots to try to come up with a curve that isn't butt-ass ugly. So that's going to pretty much dictate my profile. Because if the tuner is more than half to 5/8 is about the extent. It's about as far as you can go and still be able to manipulate the knobs right, buttons, whatever. So it kind of dictates the shape of our headstock. Yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna do a little bit of playing until I find a shape that I'm not disgusted by, and we'll see how that goes. I think we're good. So, might as well chop it up. Okay, there's several things we could do at this point, but I want to do our initial facets as soon as possible. Here's my thinking. In the past, it didn't quite go this way, but before we dig out the truss, I want initial facets done. So if this thing wants to move at all, it'll do it before we actually dig out the truss rods so we can set it just at the perfect depth. It's rarely happened, but there's been a time or two, you dig out your truss channel, you get it set perfect, you do your initial carve, and you get just a little bit of a bow or something. So you have to plane that flat, and once you do, then your truss channel is a hair shallow. and it's hard to get it back into the perfect location. I mean, you can do it, but it's not ideal. You got room to screw up there. So I can't help but think we'll do our initial facets. I'm excited to get that done anyway, and then we're a long ways on having the neck done. Some point we'll have to deal with the back of the head. I'm not tremendously worried about that right now. You know, we got to figure out head plate and all that stuff before we know exactly how thick this part needs to be anyway. So anyway, before we can do our initial facets, we need to get it down to thickness. So I usually shoot for around the nut a little less than 3/4 of an inch. We could probably go lower than that, but that does feel pretty comfortable. And at the heel end, just a little more than 3/4 of an inch. And like I said, need be at some point that can all come down some. But the truss rod's going to be 1/2 inch deep, and we want a little bit of meat there, you know. So once we get the back thickness down, then we can do initial facets. Then we're free to do the truss rod and access to it. This one's not going to be a spoke nut. Since it's multi-scale, we're going to have to do more of the traditional head end Allen wrench truss nut. We could also work on fretboard, but right now I want to do this. So I will painfully slow use my shin toe to bring everything down to the lines I have drawn. And I'm not going to have you watch the whole thing. Alright, we're not exactly down to depth, but we're pretty close. We are good and even across the whole thing. And once the top is a little facet that's, you know, 1/4 of the size of the whole thing, it'll be a hell of a lot easier to bring down. My main concern was to get close, and more importantly, get everything down to a uniform depth. Now, I haven't done this before in doing an asymmetrical neck, but I think this will make life a hell of a lot easier. What I will affectionately call our center line is not actually going to be our center line. I want to go just slightly base heavy at this end, but not a lot. The first time we tried an asymmetrical, we went way the hell, and it's alright, it's good, it's a little bit much at this end. So I think just a little bit heavy on this end is probably the best way to go. Down here, heavy as hell. And it feels freaking awesome. So, this will be our effective center line. Alright, we'll look at the half and then base our facet off of that. So I think our initial facet will be 1/4 of that. Pretty much be from there to there. And from there to there. And then of course, I don't know, we're going to go to about 1/4 inch from the fretboard platform. We need to leave enough for routing and stuff like that. So Let's let the fun begin. That will be our center facet. We have some good initial facets, and now the bulk of the material that is going to be removed from the neck has been moved, so we can let it rest for a couple days and see if it wants to move. Hopefully it doesn't, but whatever. In a few days we can check our flatness, get that all taken care of if it needs some adjusting, and then dig out the truss rod. I know it looks a little extreme, but believe me, once you have felt a neck like that, it'll change your life. It really is super awesome. It is so incredibly comfortable down here. You don't even notice the weirdness. Like I said, the first asymmetrical neck I did quite a bit heavier on the base end up here, and you did notice it. It plays just fine. It feels okay, but you notice it, and I think maybe a very slight heaviness down on this end will probably be best of both worlds, best of all worlds really. But down here, the heavier you go, I mean, it really does feel amazing. So, as crazy as that looks, it's going to be awesome. Alright, I couldn't help myself. I did do a little bit of shaping around the volute. Not a lot, but some. Which has led me to think I want to work on bringing these in. This is one of the things I'm always worried about. It's usually not a problem, but I think that's just because I'm always terrified about it. Where we laminated these ears, where they actually connect to the neck, we want to transition smooth into that, but not dig any deeper than the original blank. We want to just barely come down to the blank and just smooth into it. All I was looking to do was just set it up, make sure it was set up. But now that it is, I mean, there's not really a whole lot of point in not doing it. We're in place. We are dead center. Might as well just do it. Thanks for joining me. If you like what we're doing, if you're digging it, like and subscribe. Catch you next time. Like, subscribe.